This is the video for page 426, 427, numbers 1 through 39. Your homework was 2 through 40 even. Okay, so when you're dealing with rational exponents, remember, just like when we have a radical, you can take the index and make it the denominator of your exponent. You can go backwards and make the denominator of your number swing back around front and become the index. So for instance, here, you would swing this back around front. Remember, before the radical went away, so when you're swinging it back around, you're going to add a radical to it, and then you'll just bring the denominator around and it'll become your index. So this becomes 2, or it should be square root of 49 to the first power. Well, 49 to the first power is just 49, and the square root of 49 is just 7. So you probably didn't know what 49 to the 1/2 was, but if you swing that denominator back around and make it your index, then it's the square root of 49, which you know is 7. Alright, same situation here. We're going to swing the denominator around to become an index, and then we're going to add a radical to it. So then it becomes the cube root of 27 to the first power. Well, 27 to the first power is just 27, and the cube root of 27 is 3. So 27 to the 1/3 power is just 3. Alright, same situation here. We're going to swing the denominator around to become the index and add a radical. So it's going to be the 4th root of 1/16 to the first power. And you know that you can break up the radical and do 4th root of 1 over 4th root of 16. I don't know what the 4th root of 1/16 is, but I know that the 4th root of 1 is 1 and the 4th root of 16 is 2. So 16 to the 1/4 power is just 1/2. Okay? Nothing changes here. Swing it around front and make it your index and add your radical. So then you have the square root of 169 to the first power. 169 to the first power is just 169, and the square root of 169 is 13. Okay, now you have to be careful here. What is being raised to the 1/3 power? 2m is not being raised to the 1/3 power because there's no parentheses. So just m is being raised to the 1/3 power. So take your denominator around and make it your index of just your m, and then put a radical on just your m. So you have 2, and then times the cube root of m to the first. And since you can't really simplify that anymore, we can just go ahead and get rid of the first power there. So it's just 2 times the cube root of m. We don't know what the cube root of m is, so that's actually our final answer. Alright, here, now notice on this one it's a little bit different. We have parentheses here. So everything is being raised to the 1/2 power. So when we swing the denominator around front to make it our index, we put the radical over the whole thing. So you have the square root of 9x to the 4th, all being raised to the first power. But we know that the first power is just itself, so we're going to leave it the square root of 9x to the 4th. And then these are the ones that we break apart. So we have the square root of 9 times the square root of x to the 4th. We know the square root of 9 is 3. And then this time we're actually going to swing the index back around and make it our denominator. And this is going to become x squared. So your answer is 3x squared. Alright, again, this entire thing is being raised to the 1/3 power. So I'm going to swing my denominator around and make it my index. So it's the cube root of, and make sure to add your radical, cube root of negative 27 to the first power. I'm not going to worry about writing the first power. And we know the cube root of negative 27 is negative 3. The reason it's okay to have a negative under your radical in this one is because your index is an odd number. Remember, it's only not a real number if your index is an even number. Alright, be careful here. This one also can be very tricky. In this case, just the 16 is being raised to the 1/4 power. This negative is not. So when I take this exponent and swing it around front and put my radical here, that negative is going to be on the outside. So it's negative the 4th root of 16 to the first power, which is negative the 4th root of 16. The 4th root of 16 is 2. and then just throw that negative out in front of it because you have it out in front of your fourth root. So negative 16 to the 1/4 power is negative 2. Okay, so here, now you notice we're going to start actually having numbers in our numerator of our fractions as opposed to just 1. So we're still going to swing the denominator around. So it's going to be the fourth root, add your radical, the fourth root of 16 cubed. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is figure out what 16 cubed is. Okay, 16 cubed is 4,096. So what is the fourth root of 4,096? Okay, the fourth root of 4,096 is 8. And the only way I figured that out is I just guessed numbers in my calculator and multiplied them times each other 4 times until I got 4,096. Took me about 3 guesses. Alright, here, the entire negative 64 is being raised to the 2/3 power. So this denominator becomes my index. I add my radical. So it's the cube root of negative 64 squared. Now be very careful to make sure you have your parentheses there because that's going to make a difference. 64 times 64 is 4,096. That's negative 64 squared. And now I need the cube root of 4,096. Okay, so I tried 12 times 12 times 12. That didn't work. 14 doesn't work. It's 16. So the cube root of 4,096 is 16. Okay, it just took me 3 guesses. Alright. Again, the entire negative 16 is being raised to the 3/4 power. So bring the denominator around to be the index. So you have the fourth root of negative 16 cubed. Okay, and you can actually do this one of 2 ways. You can either do it negative 16 cubed is negative 4,096. Okay, or you could have done, well, actually, okay, I'm not going to show you that just yet because this one's actually just not a real number. Because if you notice, index of even, negative underneath, you can't have that. So 21 is just not a real number. There's no reason to go any further than that. But I will show you both ones on the next one. So remember, even index, negative under the radical, not a real number. Okay, so here 2x is being raised to the 3/5 power. So I'm going to take my denominator, swing it around front, the whole thing becomes the 5th root. Remember to add your radical sign. The 5th root of 2x cubed. Now because there's parentheses here, the 2 is being cubed and the x is being cubed. So this is the 5th root of 2 cubed x cubed. And we know that 2 cubed is 8. So it's the 5th root of x cubed. Now we can't go any further here because 8 doesn't simplify any further and x cubed doesn't simplify any further. So that is your answer. And honestly, you could have even left it like this. Okay, so now notice again, this entire binomial is being raised to the 2/3 power. So when I swing this denominator around front, it becomes the cube root, add your radical, of 7x plus 2 squared. Don't forget your exponent there. Your numerator just becomes your only exponent. Okay? And that's really as far as you can take this problem. You could multiply this out, but nothing's gonna, you only have 2 of them, and you need 3 of them in order to simplify it. So I would just go that far and then I would stop. Okay? So we have 16 over 9 to the 3/2 power. So I'm going to swing this around. It's going to become the square root of 16 over 9 cubed. Okay? That's the same as the square root of 16 cubed over 9 cubed. Okay? 16 cubed, we know, is 4,000 4,096, and 9 cubed is 729. Now, I don't know what the square root of 4,096 over 729 is, so I'm going to break up the radical in the numerator and denominator, and then I'm going to find the square root of 4096 and the square root of 729. Okay, the square root of 4096 is 64, which makes sense because the cube root was 16, or 16, and the fourth root was 8, so it would make sense that it would be divisible by both of those. And then 729, the square root of 729 is 27, and we know the cube root of 729 is 9, so it would make sense that it would be 64 over 27. Alright, so now we're going to swing this index around front, our denominator around front, make it our index. So it's going to be the cube root of 8 to the negative 4 power. Now remember, negative exponent in the numerator, drop it like it's hot. So we have cube root of 1 over 8 to the 4th, and that makes it 1 over, cube root of 1 over 4096. That's a popular number on this homework. So I'm going to break it up again. Cube root of 1 over the cube root of 4096. Cube root of 1 is just 1, and the cube root of 4096 is 16, remember? So our answer is just 1 over 16. Alright. All of this is being raised to the 2/3 power. So make your exponent become your denominator become your index. So it's the cube root of negative 64 to the negative 2 power. So because it's a negative exponent, you're going to drop it like it's hot. So it's cube root of 1 over negative 64 squared. So then it's cube root of 1 over 4096, which again, we just figured this out in the last one. So cube root of 1 over cube root of 4096. Cube root of 1 is 1. Cube root of 4096 is 16. Okay, again, make your denominator your index. So it becomes the square root, add your radical, of negative 4 to the negative 3 power. Okay, so this is going to be the square root of 1 over negative 4 cubed, because drop it like it's hot, which becomes the square root of 1 over negative 4 cubed is negative 64. Okay, so notice negative under the radical when you have an even index, because our index is 2, so 33 is not a real number. Okay. Swing your denominator around front to make it your index. Add your radical. So it's the 4th root of x to the negative 1 power. Because you have a negative exponent, drop it like it's hot. 4th root of 1 over x. You can't take that any further. So you can just leave it like this. Or if you want to take it one little step further, you can do this. You could do the 4th root of 1 over the 4th root of x, because you know you can break up a fraction under a radical. We know the 4th root of 1 is 1, so we have the 4th root of x, but you can't have a radical in your denominator. So take your index back, we know this is to the 1st power, and make it your denominator again, which gives you 1 over x to the 1/4 power. And that's probably how it would look on the PERT, so be careful with that. Okay? Negative exponent in the denominator, raise it to the top, right? So we're going to go ahead and immediately raise this to my numerator, which is going to give me 1 times a to the 2/3 power, which we know is just a to the 2/3 power. Then bring your index around front, and you'll end up with the cube root of a squared. Okay, now that's how you would want to write it if they asked for it in radical form. But in the directions, they actually asked for it with positive exponents. So you would actually just leave this a to the 2/3 power right there. All right, now what is being raised to the negative 3/4 power? Just x. So negative exponent in the denominator, raise it to the top. So that gives us 5x to the 3/4 power over 7. And since they want it in just positive exponents, you leave it like that. If they asked for it in radical form, you would take the 4 from your denominator and make it your index, which would be 5 times the 4th root of x cubed over 7. But they asked for it in positive exponent, so that's how they want it right there. That is it. So you guys have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow.